Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Being smart does not automatically make you wealthy. If it did, every first-class graduate would be financially free by 35, sipping coconut water on a Tuesday afternoon while their money works overtime. But they're not. Some of the smartest people you know are stressed about money, living paycheck to paycheck, overqualified and underpaid, waiting for one big opportunity like it's a bus that's running late. Meanwhile, someone with average grades, average grammar, and bold confidence is quietly buying land, building businesses, and acquiring assets like they're collecting trading cards. So what's going on? Here's the part nobody says out loud. School trains you to be valuable. Wealth requires you to be strategic. Smart people are rewarded for correct answers. Wealthy people are rewarded for correct positioning. In school, you pass by avoiding mistakes. In business, you grow by surviving them. Smart people love certainty. They analyze, calculate, and double-check. Wealth often favors the person who moves with incomplete information but solid judgment. Then there's the salary trap. A high income feels like progress, and it is, but income is rented money. Wealth is owned money. One depends on your effort. The other survives your absence. And let's be honest, intelligence sometimes comes with ego. It's hard to be a beginner when you're used to being the smartest person in the room. But wealth doesn't care about your GPA. It respects ownership, leverage, and patience. The hidden rule? Intelligence can get you hired. Only alignment between mindset, action, and ownership builds wealth. Brilliance opens doors. Strategy keeps them open. 1. Intelligence is not the same as financial awareness. Here's where it gets interesting. Smart people are trained to solve problems. Wealthy people are trained to spot leverage. Those are not the same skill. School programs you to find the correct answer. Circle A. Defend your thesis. Show you're working. If you're right, you win. Money doesn't care if you're right. Money cares where you're positioned. You can explain inflation better than the news anchor and still have zero. Investments. You can break down the stock market with beautiful grammar and still never buy a single share. You can debate economic policy at dinner, then pay rent forever. That's the gap. Intelligence says, I understand how this works. Financial awareness asks, how can this work for me? One collects information. The other acquires assets. Smart people often wait until they feel completely ready. They want more data, more clarity, one more book, one more podcast. Meanwhile, the less informed person has already started a small business, bought land on the edge of town, or invested imperfectly, and learned in motion. Because knowing isn't the same as doing, and doing isn't the same as positioning. You can work very hard at the wrong thing. You can execute perfectly inside a system you don't own. Financial awareness is not about being the smartest in the room. It's about asking a different question. Does this effort build ownership or just income? That single shift changes everything. Intelligence makes you impressive. Positioning makes you wealthy. And the market has never paid bonuses for impressive explanations. 2. Smart people overthink risk. Intelligent minds love certainty. They want all the data, all the projections, all the guarantees, preferably in a neat spreadsheet with color coding and footnotes. If possible, they would also like the future emailed to them in PDF form. Here's the problem. Wealth doesn't offer guarantees. It offers probabilities. And probabilities are uncomfortable. They don't hug you. They don't promise you anything. They simply say, if you position yourself wisely over time, the odds move in your favor. Smart people are trained to minimize mistakes. In school, one wrong answer drops your grade. In real life, one wrong move feels like public embarrassment. So they study longer. They analyze deep. They wait for the perfect time. But perfect clarity rarely comes. The wealthy person understands something different. Risk is not the enemy. Mismanaged risk is. So instead of asking, is this guaranteed? They ask, is this calculated? They don't jump blindly. They assess, they prepare, and then they move. Not recklessly, not emotionally, just decisively. Meanwhile, the overthinker is still comparing 17 YouTube videos, 3 expert opinions, and a cousin's warning from 2009. While one is researching, the other is acquiring. And here's the twist. Action creates clarity faster than analysis ever will. Experience teaches what theory cannot. Small, imperfect moves often build more financial intelligence than years of observation. Overthinking feels responsible. But sometimes, it's just fear dressed in intelligence. Wealth doesn't reward the most cautious thinker. It rewards the most disciplined executor. Certainty feels safe. Calculated movement builds assets. And assets, over time, silence doubt better than any spreadsheet ever could. 3. They mistake income for wealth. High salary? Impressive. Truly. The title is shiny. The office is nice. The alerts from your bank app feel like applause. But here's the quiet truth no one says at the promotion party. Income is rented money. Wealth is owed money. Income shows up because you showed up. Miss a few months? It politely stops. Wealth, on the other hand, doesn't ask for your attendance. It doesn't care if you're on vacation, asleep, or ignoring your email. It keeps working. Smart professionals are trained to optimize for promotions. Bigger title, bigger office, bigger paycheck. It makes sense. That's the ladder they were handed. But wealth builders optimize for ownership. They ask different questions. Do I own this? Does this asset grow without my daily effort? Will this pay me even when I'm tired? A raise feels amazing. You celebrate. You upgrade your car. Maybe the apartment. Maybe the watch starts looking reasonable. Lifestyle expands quietly and convincingly. But equity? Equity builds freedom. Equity doesn't just increase what you can buy. It increases what you can refuse. You can refuse bad bosses, refuse toxic environments, refuse desperation decisions. One increases lifestyle. The other increases options. And options are the real flex. There's nothing wrong with earning well. High income is powerful if it's directed toward ownership. The danger is mistaking motion for progress. A bigger salary can make you comfortable. Ownership can make you independent. Income makes you look successful. Wealth makes you secure. And security, unlike a paycheck, doesn't disappear when the company reorganizes. 4. They trust the system too much. Smart people are very good at winning inside systems. They understand the rules. They meet expectations. They exceed targets. In school, that works beautifully. Study hard, pass exams, and collect certificates. In companies, it works too. Hit KPIs, get praised, maybe get promoted. So naturally, they assume the system will reward them long-term. That sounds logical. But here's the uncomfortable part. Systems reward usefulness, not ownership. If you are useful, you are valuable. If you are valuable, you are compensated. But if you are not an owner, you are still optional. You can be indispensable and still replaceable. It happens quietly. A restructuring, a budget cut, a strategic realignment. Suddenly, years of loyalty are summarized in one HR email that starts with, "We appreciate your contributions." The system is not evil. It's efficient. Its goal is performance, not your financial freedom. Smart people often double down at this point. They work harder. They become even more reliable. They polish their resumes. They stack certifications like trophies. But wealth is rarely built by being the best employee in the room. It's built by owning a piece of the room. Ownership changes the conversation. When you own equity, shares, property, or a scalable business, you are no longer just participating in the system. You are benefiting from its growth. Employees trade time for income. Owners build assets that grow beyond their time. There's nothing wrong with employment. It can fund your journey. But trusting the system to secure your future without ownership? That's optimism disguised as strategy. The smartest move isn't escaping the system. It's learning how to own within it. 5. They confuse activity with progress. Busy is not rich. Exhausted is not wealthy. But you wouldn't know that from how proudly we announce it. How are you? I'm very busy. As if fatigue is a status symbol. Smart people are excellent at activity. Their calendars look like airport departure boards. Meetings stacked on meetings. Deadlines. Calls. Strategy sessions. Inbox zero achieved at 11:47 p.m., a small personal victory before collapsing into bed. It feels productive. It looks impressive. It is exhausting. But here's the uncomfortable question. If all that activity stops, does the income stop too? If the answer is yes, that's not progress. That's sophisticated survival. Trading time for money can be honorable and necessary. But when every naira, dollar, or pound depends on your constant motion, you haven't built freedom, you've built a treadmill. And treadmills are very good at keeping you in one place. Leverage is different. Leverage asks, what can I build once that pays repeatedly? What can grow without my daily supervision? What system works even when I rest? assets, investments, scalable businesses, intellectual property, equity. That's progress. The irony is that leverage often looks slow at first. It doesn't give you daily applause. It requires patience, consistency, and delayed gratification. Three things busyness tries to eliminate. Activity feels urgent. Leverage feels strategic. One drains you. The other multiplies you. There is nothing wrong with working hard. But hard work without leverage is just well-organized effort. True progress is not measured by how full your calendar is. It's measured by how little your income depends on it. 6. Ego gets in the way. Here's the ironic part. The smarter you are, the harder it is to be a beginner. When you're used to being the intelligent one in the room, the idea of not knowing something feels defensive. You've built a reputation. People expect sharp answers, confident opinions, polished insight. Wealth doesn't care about your reputation. It often requires starting small, looking inexperienced, asking basic questions, making imperfect moves in public. And that's where ego starts sweating. Ego whispers, "You should already know this. You have degrees. You can't start that tiny business. You can't buy just one small asset. That's beneath you." So instead of learning, you hesitate. Instead of experimenting, you analyze. Instead of starting small, you wait for something worthy of your intelligence. But wealth rarely begins with something glamorous. It begins with something awkward. Your first investment won't feel legendary. Your first side business may look unimpressive. Your first attempt at ownership might be clumsy. And that's normal. The problem is, ego interprets beginner status as failure. But in reality, beginner status is tuition. It's the price of entry. Safe feels dignified. Safe feels controlled. Safe protects your image. But safe keeps you stable. And the stable is comfortable, but rarely free. The people who build wealth long-term are not always the smartest in the room. They're often the most humble, willing to look inexperienced today to become competent tomorrow. Ego wants applause. Wealth requires patience. One protects your pride. The other expands your possibilities. And sometimes, the smartest move you can make, is allowing yourself to look like a rookie. 7. They optimize for security, not freedom. From childhood, smart people are trained to reduce risk. Study hard so you don't fail. Choose a stable career. Avoid uncertain paths. Play it safe. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. It even sounds wise. And to be fair, security matters. Bills need to be paid. Food needs to be on the table. Nobody is suggesting reckless decisions or dramatic quit your job tomorrow speeches. But here's the subtle trap. If your entire life is optimized for security, you may never build freedom. Smart people are excellent at minimizing downsides. They pick stable companies, predictable salaries, reliable routines. They make decisions that protect what they already have. But wealth requires something slightly different. It requires managing risk, not avoiding it. There's a difference. Avoiding risk says, "What if I lose?" Managing risk says, "If I lose, how much? And can I survive it?" One keeps you comfortable. The other stretches your capacity. Comfort pays the bills. Capacity builds empires. When you only chase security, you build a life that works, as long as everything keeps working. One disruption, one layoff, one policy change, and the safe structure starts shaking. But when you build capacity, skills, assets, ownership, diversified income, you're not just protecting income. You're expanding options. Security is about preservation. Freedom is about expansion. Security says, "Don't fall." Freedom says, "Learn how to climb." The irony? True security often comes after you've taken managed risks and built assets that don't depend on one source. Playing safe feels intelligent. But intelligently managed risk is what changes your trajectory. Comfort maintains your lifestyle. Capacity changes your life. The real hidden rule. Here's the kicker. Wealth isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about alignment. Alignment between identity, who you see yourself as in the world; behavior, what you actually do with your time, money, and energy; ownership, what you control, not just what you earn; leverage, how your efforts multiply instead of just repeating. Smart people often crush the academic game. They get degrees, accolades, and respect. Their brains get a standing ovation. But wealth? It plays by a completely different set of rules. Different scoreboard, different rewards, different levels of patience. You can be brilliant analytical, and witty, and still be financially stuck if your actions, mindset, and assets aren't aligned. That's why someone with average grades but fearless execution quietly builds empires while the genius spends decades optimizing spreadsheets and never owning a thing. Brilliance opens doors. Alignment keeps them open. You want wealth? Stop trying to be just smart. Start being aligned. Smart can get you a paycheck. Alignment can get you freedom. And freedom, unlike your GPA, never expires.